Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Lovey Russo and I'm alcoholic. And it's only by the grace of God and Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm alive, sober, and recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. And what that means is that I get to be useful in my life today. I get to be a wife, mother, daughter, and a sister. And guys, I have a grand sponsor who absolutely insists that I do this every time I speak. So, Rule 62, right? Don't take myself so damn seriously. And for those of you in Tennessee, you may know, you may know who my grand sponsor is. Um, Guys, I have a sobriety date. It's September the 7th of 2015. And in that very, very short amount of time, there's been no need or obsession to pick up a drug, or drink or a drug. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor, who has a sponsor, who has a sponsor ad infinitum. And guys, I sponsor sponsors. And this one time I complained about a GSR meeting. So now I have a service sponsor. So please, I beg of you to be very careful what you complain to your sponsor about. But you know what? Service has kept me sober. I have a home group. It is the main purpose group out of Milford, Connecticut. And John, who's on this meeting, is currently facilitating our big book study. So please join us on Tuesday evenings at 7. But due to the power of amends, I get to live on the beautiful island of Bermuda. And if you find yourself on my beautiful island and you want to come to a meeting, please let me know. I'm more than happy to make those arrangements for you or to take you to a meeting myself. And conversely, if you find yourself in New England, right, you're coming up for wicked good lobster or to see the leaves change in the fall, please let me know. Guys, if you have heard me speak before, I would not be offended if you leave the meeting, right? I am absolutely okay with that. But Glenn, thank you for asking me to speak. And it's always an honor to do anything for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember when I was new, I told my sponsor, I'll do anything for AA except speak. Well, that hasn't really worked out well for me, has it? You know what, guys? I'm going to wish Alcoholics Anonymous a very early happy birthday. On Saturday, we will be celebrating 88 years of existence. And that is absolutely amazing. 88 years where we alcoholics have been able to gather and share, hope, strength, and experience. And page 88 of the book tells me the ex-problem drinker, right, who's the sober alcoholic, who has found this solution, the 12 steps, and who's properly armed with the facts about himself, right, that we have an obsession and a physical allergy, can generally win over another alcoholic in a short amount of time. And that has truly been my experience. So I'm very grateful to all of you who've come before me. Guys, what you're going to hear is 100% my experience, my truth, my reality, both in active alcoholism and in the program. I can only share with you my experience, guys. I'm a fellow traveler. I don't profess to know anything about AA, nothing about the big book, and certainly nothing about God. And as a result of the third step, I'm out of management now. And that bugs me, but I am out of management. And everything is above my pay grade. And the third step reminds me that my sole job is to be an agent of God. And my job, right? My job is to take care of God's kids. I am extremely grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous. Grateful is what I am, and gratitude is what I do. For me, this is a simple program of spiritual action, right? I don't get struck sober sitting in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's work that I have to do. I have to follow the instructions as laid out in the first 164 pages. Now, when I first walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was facing a potential 16 years in federal prison. And I would hear you guys, right? I would hear you guys in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, like Glenn said, saying ridiculous things like, "Good morning, my name is so-and-so, and I'm a grateful alcoholic." Oh, I hated you. I hated you guys. I hated you with all a passion. And this used to infuriate me. And I could not for the life of me understand how you could be grateful. I mean, grateful for what? Guys, I couldn't drink and I wanted to, and I wasn't very happy, and I certainly wasn't very grateful. You see, I came to AA not to stop drinking, but for you guys to teach me how to drink like a lady, or how to drink those ridiculous Caribbean drinks, with chunks of fruit and umbrellas. That's not the way I drank, guys. I had a bottle of whiskey underneath my car seat in the blazing sun. And, but I figured you guys were the professionals, right? You were in AA. You knew what you were doing. And you could teach me You could give me pointers on how to be a responsible drinker. But did you do that? Oh, no, you did not. You showed me these silly window shades hanging in the rooms, and you told me that drinking was not my problem, but my solution. What? Come on, that's not the case. See, I was always under the impression that drinking was my problem. That's what the judge said. That's what the police said. That's what the doctor said, right? My husband, with a frothy emotional appeals, spittle flying from his mouth. Why do you drink so much? Just stop drinking. If you loved me, if you loved our kids, you would stop drinking. And I could come up with lies and alibis and excuses, but the real reason I drank was, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea why I drink. I love alcohol. I still do, right? And if I had known my last drink was going to be my last drink, I would have thrown a party. I promise, I swear, I own a great big white party tent. I would have invited the media, the paparazzi. We would have celebrated with puke-friendly food. That's always really, really important. But that was not the case. And guys, I thoroughly, absolutely loved a 21-year-old Scotch, or a 30-year-old Scotch. The smokier, the better. I love the way that it smelled. And I love the way that Scotch looked in a crystal glass, right, as the sun shone through it. And, whiskey was my best friend. It was my lover. It was my confidant. It was there when I cried, and it was there when I raged. You see, I love the way that alcohol made me feel. You see, it transported me to this place of comfort and ease. And alcohol did for me what I could never, ever do for myself, right? And the book says that we drink primarily for the effect. Oh, the effect, right? That ease and comfort of that first drink. And booze was magical in my life, absolutely magical. It made me taller, younger, always made me thinner, made me a better dancer, made me a better kisser, or at least I thought it did. And it provided this courage and self-confidence. You see, alcohol transformed me into the person I could never, ever be all by myself. And in a letter to Bill Wilson, Carl Jung wrote, spiritus contra spiritum, right? God the spirit, capital S, versus alcohol the spirit, small s. And there is a reason why alcohol is called a spirit. It's derived from an Arabic term, al-ghal, meaning body-eating spirit. I don't know about you guys, but when I was drinking, alcohol consumed me and destroyed me physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, if you're new or nearly new, you may recognize this. You may feel it, and it's something that many of us have. I always felt different from all of you, right? I didn't belong. I was an outsider. And I used to believe, I've got two younger sisters, and I used to always think that I was adopted. Now, my sisters and I look exactly the same. We went to Hawaii for my 50th birthday, and we went up to the Volcano National Park, and my sisters are very tall and thin, and they were cold because we were up in altitude, and we all decided to buy the same t-shirt, and it was long sleeves. And we somehow got separated, and some man said to us, if you're looking for the people that look like you, they went that way, right? So my sisters and I look the same, right? We look the same. Yet I was convinced that somehow, some way, I was mixed up at birth. I grew up in the early 70s, and it was the time of, alien invasion, Roswell, Area 51, the body snatchers, robots, bionics, the $6 million men, right? And I really, truly believed that, all of the people in my life had been replaced by something else, and I was the only human being around. And I had all of these thoughts before I even started kindergarten, right? How old are we when we were in kindergarten? Like 4 or 5? Guys, I could have used a drink when I was in kindergarten. And I hear people say that all the time. I really could have used a drink. And my life has been a series of events that just remind me how different I am from all of you, right? I feel separated, isolated, terminally unique, and I could never understand it, never put my finger on it until I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you guys, right? It was you guys that told me that I had a spiritual malady, and this spiritual malady made me feel irritable, restless, and discontent. Irritable, restless, and discontent. I finally had a word to describe how I was feeling. And you told me I never had to feel this way again, that there was a solution, right? And that was by engaging in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, a spiritual malady does not make me alcoholic. Not at all, right? My husband, this wonderful, wonderful man I've been married to for 33 years, he has a spiritual malady, but he's not an alcoholic. He abuses alcohol, just not the way that I abused alcohol, right? He will let a beer go warm and flat, right? He will not finish, a shot of whiskey. He just does things that irritate me, and I can't understand why. He just doesn't drink it. Just drink it, for Pete's sakes, right? You see, guys, what makes me alcoholic is that I have a physical allergy to alcohol and this really, really strange, bizarre mental obsession. And I used to believe it was the 8th or the 9th drink that got me drunk, right? And if I could stop drinking it, 3 drinks, 4 at the most, no more than 6, I would be good. And the big book uses this really great phrase, pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. How did I get here again? Why does this keep happening, right? I swear to God, I'm not going to drink today, guys. I'm not going to drink today. And by 11 a.m., I've got a bottle to my mouth, and I can't understand why that keeps happening, right? But it was you guys that told me it was the first drink that got me drunk. No, I argued, it's not. It would take 8 or 9 drinks because I'm a good drunk, guys. I can handle my booze. And you argued and you said, no, it's the first drink. You see, you told me that when I drink, I trigger this allergy and this phenomenon of craving, and the first drink insists on the second, which demands the third and screams for the fourth, and so on and so on and so on. I just thought I was changing my mind, right? But you guys told me that I had lost the power of choice, whether I was going to drink or not. See, I drink no matter what. Now, all of that would be irrelevant if I didn't pick up that first drink in the first place, right? And I have a body that won't let me drink and a mind that won't let me stop. And there's the problem, right? The book tells me that my problem is centered in my mind. And that is that peculiar mental twist where my mind tells me that the next time I drink, it's going to be different. It's going to be different, Lovey. I swear, I promise to God, it's going to be different. That if I stop drinking for a small period of time, I should be able to participate in a champagne toast at my kid's wedding. So I had an interesting experience. I flew into JFK the other day from Bermuda, and very surprisingly and gratefully, I was upgraded to first class. I mean, that's so cool, right? And I got into my big comfy seat, and then my seatmate joined me, and he had 2 bottles of rum from duty free. And one of the perks of being in first class is being asked before we take off if we wanted a drink. And my seatmate asked for a gin and tonic and a Bloody Mary, right? He's double fisting it. And I asked for a Diet Coke. He looked at me and he was really stunned, right? He said, alcohol is free in first class, right? I said, yeah, I know. He says, so why aren't you having a drink? He said, vacation doesn't end until we land in New York. I said, I don't drink. He says, you don't drink? I said, no. He said, not even a little? No, nothing at all. So why don't you drink? Well, because I'm allergic to alcohol. Allergic? Yeah. He said, well, what would happen if you had a sip? So, guys, this is what I told him. I said, look, I don't understand the verb to sip, right? I chug, I guzzle. And I would down my drink, and then I would take both of yours. And then I would get into the duty-free bottles that are sitting underneath your seat. And you see that celebrity that's 1 seat ahead of me? You know what? I'd probably climb over the seat, start making out with him. Guys, Mile High Club, anyone? Right? I mean, come on. That would be my reality. I would create such a disturbance on that flight. I would have an epic fight with the flight attendant. I try to ram the cockpit because I know that I can fly this bird better than the pilots. The air marshal would show up and zap me with a taser, and I would end up in the hospital in handcuffs, because that's what happens, guys, when I drink. So no, I'm not going to have a drink because I have plans for this summer, right? I got things to do, because that's what happens when I drink, guys. Now, I have 6 kids, and I gave birth to them all naturally without drugs, right? I had a 10-pound baby boy and a set of twins at 40 weeks, and they were 7'2" and 7'4" at birth, right? I have no relative memory of the pain or the uncomfortability of giving of childbirth, right? Intellectually, I recognize it, but I have no memory of it. And why do you think that is? Because God gives women amnesia to trick us into having more babies. So if you've had a baby drug-free, or if you've been with a woman who's had a baby drug-free, why would we do that a second time? Well, because we don't remember, right? I have a built-in forgetter. And page 24 of our book says that we are unable at certain times to bring into consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against that first drink, right? And that is truly, truly my experience as well. My mother is still incredibly proud of the fact that all of her babies slept through the night from the moment we got home from the hospital. And I know you know how she did that, right? She put a cap full of whiskey in our baby bottles. And she would put, whiskey on our gums while we were teething. And she would make hot toddies for us when we come in from playing in the snow. And she would use it also as a general disinfectant, probably the precursor to hand sanitizer. And I remember getting whiskey underneath my fingernails, right? And I would suck that out. Oh, it was the nectar of the gods. Who needed KFC, finger licking good, when I had whiskey underneath my fingernails? Guys, it was amazing. My mother also made this concoction, and she still does, and she feeds it to all like the widows in her building, and she claims it staves off not only general ailments, COVID, but also dementia. All right, fine. And it consists of grilled onions, vinegar, and whiskey. Sounds repugnant, right? Disgusting. But she would make us eat that when we weren't feeling well. And I grew up as a latchkey kid, so it was in the fridge, and we were instructed to take a little bit every single day. And I had to deal with my sisters that 4 1/4, which was a lot of money back in my day, right? I would take their dose of this homemade whiskey medication. And it was a huge win-win for me. Why? Because not only did I make some money, right, I also got extra doses of whiskey. And for me, that was absolutely, it was absolutely the highlight of my day. Now, there is a fellow in our book by the name of Jim, right, in More About Alcoholics. And he says something, he's out driving around trying to sell a car, and he stops at a restaurant because he's hungry, and he goes in and he orders a sandwich and a glass of milk. And he says something like, suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it wouldn't hurt on a full stomach. And when newcomers read that in our meetings, right, they're like, oh, that's disgusting. That's so gross. Who would do that? I'm like, oh my God, me, please pick me, right? And the meeting chairman always ignores me, right? Guys, I got my whiskey first in a baby bottle. And then it was in, rum or whiskey and Coke. And then it was, whiskey on the rocks, until it was whiskey neat, until it was whiskey in the bottle sitting underneath my car seat, right? And I would drink it in the heat of the sun, right? The progression of alcoholism. And I hear a lot of people talking about the progression of their alcoholism, how consequences eventually started to catch up with them. Now, my experience is somewhat different. I had consequences from the very, very beginning. And my first drink on my own without parental assistance, I was 14. And I got blackout. I blacked out, right? I have absolutely no memory or knowledge of that event. And I got pregnant. And I'm 14 years old. And that baby was placed for adoption at birth. And without tools, I turned to the only thing that had ever provided any source of comfort, the ease and comfort of that first drink. And that was alcohol. Alcohol is reliable, guys. I know exactly how much to drink to get me to where I need to be. I just heard a speaker recently say that, drugs don't have any quality assurance to them, right? Alcohol does. I know how much I need to drink. But, alcohol began to turn on me in a really, really big way. And I started to put myself into dangerous situations just to be able to drink the way that I wanted. I was raped at gunpoint. I rolled cars, I drove too fast, I experimented, with non-conference approved dry goods. I was expelled from high school. I was arrested 3 times before I was 16. And at 16, I began a nearly year-long sexual affair with a man who was more than 3 times my age. But see, here again, it's a win-win, because every time we met, he supplied me with enough alcohol to get me through to the next time we hooked up. And that was twice a week. Remember, I'm a minor child, right? I'm 16. I can't get alcohol. Yet he was getting alcohol for me. And I met my husband when I was 17. And when I was 19, I got pregnant again. Obviously, I'm not very smart. I have not figured this out. I will tell you, however, after having 6 children, my husband and I got a TV with a VCR and a remote control, and the baby stopped coming. Who knew it was that easy, guys? Who knew it was that easy? But anyway, at 19, I was pregnant again, and we lost that baby at 29 weeks of gestation. She was a stillbirth, and without tools, I turned to the only thing that ever provided any source of comfort, and that was alcohol. Now, guys, none of those things that happened in my life made me alcoholic, right? I'm alcoholic because I have a physical allergy to alcohol, because I have a mental obsession. And those events could have certainly contributed to my spiritual malady, but a spiritual malady alone does not make me alcoholic. Now, as my drinking progressed, I began to cross lines I never, ever thought I would. Oh. And the big book talks about having moral and philosophical convictions galore. Guys, I had these convictions. I was raised well. To my knowledge, my sisters have never sat in the backseat of a police car. My sisters have never been in state-sponsored jewelry, right? And my standards of behavior began to drop, and I started to justify my behavior. And my grand sponsor tells me if I have to justify, defend, or rationalize my behavior, it's wrong. It's always wrong. So I was a heavy haul helicopter pilot, and it sounds so sexy, right? So sexy to be a chopper pilot. But guys, I flew drunk, and I was willing to risk the lives of babies sleeping in their cribs so that none of you guys would know I had a drinking problem. It was a beautiful day, and I landed without incident. And as I sat there during that 2-minute cool down period, I was absolutely bewildered by what I had just done. You see, I had been in professional aviation for 30 years, and that was the first time I had crossed that line. And I crawled out of my aircraft and I fell to the tarmac. And the book talks about that jumping off place, right? We would realize that we couldn't live with alcohol, we couldn't live without it, and we would know loneliness like never before. And we would wish for the end. And I was there. I was absolutely there. And I pulled myself together and I wiped the tears away from my face, right? And in the state of Connecticut, we have license plates that start with 2 letters, a dash, and then a whole bunch of combinations thereafter. And the car parked in front of me had a license plate that said AA dash something else. And that was the first time, guys, the first time I recognized a sign from God. And I crawled into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, my higher power, whom I call God, has a wicked sense of humor and uses what I call God shots to make a point. You see, alcoholism was the baseball bat that God used to get my attention, right? Whack. I walked into the rooms of AA hoping that you guys would teach me how to drink like a lady. But instead, I found God first as the gift of desperation, right? I'm out on that metaphorical ocean and I'm drowning and it's dark and it's storming and waves are crashing over my head. And I'm dying, but you guys show up in a life raft and you throw me a line and I grab on because there's nothing else for me to do and you drag me to safety. Now, if it was a beautiful, beautiful day, summer day in Bermuda and you know, it was nice and calm and I could see the bottom and you guys show up and you throw me a line, I'm going to be like, you know what, guys? I have other options, right? Maybe I can do something differently. You know, I don't really like that life preserver. Yeah, it's a little dingy. It's got some mold and some barnacles on it. Why don't you throw me like a pretty magenta one, right? But that's not the way it worked. I was absolutely at the end. Now, my next higher power was a group of drunks, right? I'm listening to you guys, you know, before the meeting. I'm listening to you guys in the meeting. And I'm hearing how, you know, that conviviality, that laughter, that camaraderie, like, oh, I am a grateful alcoholic. And, you know, I'm hearing how families are being returned, how you got that job back, how marriages are being reunited. And I'm watching the miracles in your lives. And then my next higher power becomes good, orderly direction, right? I listen to what you guys say and you say, Lovey, you know, get a sponsor, someone who has experience in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Lovey, do the steps honestly and thoroughly, right? Lovey, do the next right thing. Lovey, practice spiritual principles in absolutely everything you do, even though you might not believe in it. Just do it, right? Lovey, wake up in your own bed. Lovey, wake up in your own bed with the person who's supposed to be next to you, right? Those were things that you guys taught me. And finally, you guys, finally, as a result of the steps, right, I had a spiritual awakening and I was able to develop and nurture an intimate and vertical relationship with a God of my understanding. Guys, I have to constantly remind myself that the universe as we understand it is 13 billion years old, right? I'm almost 60. What do I know in comparison to 13 billion years? Nothing. Absolutely nothing, right? There's so much wisdom in the universe, and I don't know any of it. I'm one of 7 billion people on the planet, right? 7 billion. And if something should happen to me, maybe 100 people would be affected by my death. You see, there's perspective in all of that, right? My higher power reminds me to stay right-sized, alert, and vigilant. You see, and when I engage in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, right, my life and my ego are right-sized and in check. Because guys, I'm out of management, right? My life is no longer my business. I also know, much to my chagrin, that all of my troubles, all of them, every last single one of them are of my own making, even if they aren't inherently orchestrated by my hand, right? See, it's all about my perception, my reaction, and my attitude, right? See, I have tools today, and I have to be entirely willing to allow God to remove those defects, right? Some of them are really spicy, and I'm not really willing to let go of them, right? Because they still work for me in some ways. But see, it's those same character defects that keep bubbling up. And see, for me, step 7 provides the grace of humbly asking God to remove those defects. You see, sometimes those defects are gone for life. That has not been my experience. Sometimes they're gone for a day. Still really not my experience. Sometimes they're gone for an hour. Okay, we're getting closer. Most of the time, they're only gone for 30 seconds, right? Because due to the 11th step, I get to pray for that pause in my life, right? I get to respond today, then react. It's what I do when I'm in the grocery store, standing behind a little old lady paying coupons and pennies. And oh my God, there was someplace I needed to be a half an hour ago, right? What do? All right? I need to recognize my impatience. And I ask God to remove it. Then I have to execute, right? The opposite of that character defect, which is patience, love, and compassion. And the book tells me then I have to resolutely turn my attention to someone that I can help. And I'll say to that little old lady, excuse me, ma'am, can I help bag your groceries? You know, can I take your groceries out to the car? How can I be helpful to you? See, guys, I have absolutely no business being impatient. See, it's little old lady Tuesday, and it's the only day she can get to the store. I know she's on a fixed income. I know she's maximizing her budget. She's not the problem. I'm the problem. I didn't get to the store in a timely manner. I didn't organize my day properly, right? It's always my fault, right? It's how I behave when I'm on the on I-95 and it's 5 o'clock and I'm thinking I can get to somewhere, in 30 minutes. No, that's not the way it works. It's commute traffic, right? When I drive from JFK to my home, from JFK, New York airport to my home in Connecticut, 55 miles. It takes me 3.5 hours to drive 55 miles, right? So when I get all upset in traffic, it's my fault, right? Because it's about my attitude and my perception. Now, guys, before I found Alcoholics Anonymous, I used to sit in justifiable anger. Oh, I loved it, right? I stewed in it. I nurtured it. I cherished it. I cultivated it, right? And in my younger days, my younger, more athletic days, I used to go to the gym and kickbox, right? And there's nothing better than diffusing aggression by like beating the crap out of that bag or that torso of that weird looking thing. But guys, as a result of these steps, right, I have absolutely no inclination to hit that bag anymore. Ugh, all of that seems like just so much work, right? So much work to be physically dominating my world. That internal churning, the anger, that's all gone, right? There's now an internal peace, a serenity, I hope, that permeates every part of me, something that you guys can see, right? Because it was you guys that told me that I was different, right? That this psychic change had happened, and I had no idea, right? It's like losing weight. I can't see the weight coming off, but you guys can, right? You'll say, Lovey, have you lost weight? I can see a difference in your cheeks. No, I don't know. And then it'll be, hey, Lovey, there's something different about you. I don't know. And it's not until I've lost 15 or 20 pounds and I can see that I get to see the difference. But you guys start to see the difference, so much earlier. You see, guys, because of Alcoholics Anonymous, because of the steps, I wake up every morning and I surrender my opinion, my judgment, and what I think I know about God, right? What I think I know about God. You see, as a result of 11-step inventory, I go to bed with a clean slate. And when I wake up in the morning, I am ready to accept, the world and all of her people, right? I get to love God's kids exactly where they happen to be. See, guys, I don't need to understand God to trust God, right? How many of you have been on an airplane or any kind of aircraft? Show of hands, how many of you have been on an aircraft? Right. How many of you understand aviation mechanics? How many of you can actually physically, repair that aircraft? Right? How many of you understand aviation mechanics? I don't mean, I mean aerodynamics, coefficient of lift. Right? How many of you can actually physically fly that aircraft? Right? But does that stop you from getting on a plane in Atlanta and flying to Paris? Does it stop you from getting on a helicopter to go sightseeing? No, you absolutely trust that that aircraft is going to get you from point A to point B. You don't have to understand how it works to trust it, right? Just like I don't have to understand God to trust God. Now, I'm sure we all have one of these, right? How many of us understand how these things work? I don't know. There's more computing technology and power in my phone than there was to go to the moon, right? That's absolutely incredible. Now, this uses, I'm going to get it wrong, so just hold on. Radio waves. It uses radio waves to communicate. But I can't see radio waves. I can't feel radio waves. I can't taste radio waves. Yeah, but somehow I trust that those radio waves up there are going to connect to my phone, right? And that I should be able to communicate with all of you. I just take it for granted, right? So I go into my phone and I go over here to settings and I press settings and I go over to, cellular and I press cellular and all of a sudden my phone is connected. I'm connected to all of you, right? I can text with John. I can download recipes. I can TikTok. Oh my God, I found TikTok. It's really fun on TikTok. But anyway, my point is that I don't have to understand how cell technology works to use it, right? I just trust that it does. There's things that are out of my pay grade, guys. Absolutely out of my pay grade. Now, our 12th step. Oh, I'm a big 12-step guys. It says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. For me, and only for me, step 12 is a 3-part step. The first part is a promise, right? If I do the first 11 steps, I am promised, I am guaranteed a spiritual awakening. The first 11 steps for me are the directions for finding a God of my understanding. Now, there are conditions. The book is filled with conditions. I have to be thoroughly honest, no half measures, and I need to be fearless. Guys, I'm an alcoholic. I can lie at the drop of a hat for no reason whatsoever. I can half-ass anything. And the book tells me that I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, right? But if I'm willing, if I lay aside prejudice and if I'm seeking, right, that I am going to have a spiritual awakening. And Sandy Beach said that the 12 steps were the treasure map for finding God. You see, for me, getting sober is not about not drinking one day at a time. It's about filling my life with a power that's greater than me. So cool. And in our Judo-Christian society, where does God live? Up there, right? And as a pilot, where am I hanging out? Up there. And I'm looking down at all you minions. Sometimes I wish I had a magnifying glass and I could focus the sun rays and zap some of you guys, right? Right. And my sponsor tells me, Lovey, not only are you not God, you're not a demigod and you're not even a goddess, right? My sponsor is savage, but you know what? I need that constant ego deflation. Now, the second part of step 12 is to carry this message to alcoholics. This message, right? What is this message? Well, for me, and only for me, this message is found on the first edition of the Big Book. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book, right? The directions and the instructions on how to recover are in this book, and I have to follow those instructions exactly, right? It's like if I have a Betty Crocker cake mix, right? And I give you each one exactly the same lot, and I say, hey, let's go bake a cake and we'll have a taste off. I would expect that, we would have like 24 identical cakes. But that is not the way it's going to be. I promise you. You know why? Because we don't all follow the directions, right? I'm going to look at that and go, takes a half a cup of oil. I'm on a diet. I think I'm going to use applesauce instead. Right? And Glenn's going to say, that's not really chocolatey enough. I'm going to throw in a handful of chocolate chips. Right? And Amy Elizabeth is going to say, well, you know what? I'm a vegan, so I'm going to use egg substitute. We don't end up with exactly the same cake. But if I follow the directions exactly, right? Exactly, precisely, we're all going to end up with that same cake. Same thing is true with me and Alcoholics Anonymous. I have to follow the directions precisely. Now, guys, I sponsor a lot of people. I chat with alcoholics on a daily basis, so much so that I need Al-Anon, right? You guys are a lot of work, an awful lot of work, right? I take people through the steps. I speak at meetings. I facilitate big book studies. I've served as a GSR. I'm big into the traditions and the concepts. And these are all really, really important to me, right? And I have a responsibility to take others through the steps, to watch a fellowship grow up among me, right? The book tells me that. For me, the message is hope and recovery, and that I get to do that by engaging in a program that fills my life with a power greater than me. Right? The big book uses the word approach 28 times. 28 times. I have a responsibility as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous to go out and find the newcomer. Right? I don't know where we got the idea that the newcomer has to come and find me. Right? It's my job to go find them. So I go to wind-up joints, right? I go to wind-up joints, the places that I wind up if I drink again. Jails, rehabs, detoxes. I go to fishing spots and beginner meetings, and I look for that face I don't recognize. Right? Especially in my home group. And if I see that face I don't recognize, I'll go up to them and say, hi, are you new? Yes, welcome. My name is Lovey. Here is the coffee, here are the donuts, here are the bathrooms. Here's a meeting schedule. Here's a book, right? Please come and sit beside me. Let me introduce you to some people. Would you like to go for coffee after the meeting and talk? Another new face. Hi, are you new? Especially in Bermuda. Hi, are you new? No, I'm just visiting. Welcome. My name is Lovey. Here's the coffee. We don't donut in Bermuda, we scone. So here are the scones. Here are the bathrooms. Here's a meeting schedule. Here are the meetings closest to your hotel. How can I be helpful to you? Can I offer you a ride? Another new face. Hi, are you new? No. I got 30 years of resentment in a coffee pot. I'm here to create chaos. Welcome. My name is Lovey. Here's the coffee. Here are the donuts. Here's the bathroom. Here's a meeting schedule. Here's a 4th edition book, just in case you're still working from the 3rd. Please come and sit beside me. Let me introduce you to some people. You see, guys, I get to do that today, right? I get to love God's kids where they happen to be on their journey. The third part of step 12 is to practice these principles in all of our affairs. All of my affairs, right? That's home, that's on the road, right? It's driving, it's everything that I do. All of my affairs. And these principles are spiritual in nature, right? And this is the challenge in my life, right? If I get that spiritual awakening, right, the charge is to help other alcoholics. And then the challenge is to live my life according to these principles. And I do my very best, and I don't always live up to it, to live my life with compassion, patience, forgiveness, goodwill, humility, honesty, fidelity, restitution. Right? And I know our book says love and tolerance of others is our code, but tolerance is not a word that I can use. Right? For this alcoholic, tolerance says that I am coming from a spiritual hilltop, right? And I'm just putting up with you. right? I don't get to do that. I don't get to have that kind of spiritual hubris. I get to love God's kids where they happen to be on their journey, right? And see, guys, I get to be a producer of harmony today rather than confusion. You know, life is really, really short, and I don't want to live in conflict, and I don't want to live in hate. Now, I mentioned restitution and how restitution follows these spiritual principles, and restitution follows the 9-step amends. I had a bunch of amends I had to make, and one of them was to my husband. And I said to him, you know, what more can I do to make this right? And he got down on one knee and he said, please be my wife. Guys, we had been married already for 25 years. I wasn't a very good wife. I got some new jewelry out of the deal. So, I mean, that was huge. But anyway, he said, please be my wife. And husbands and wives live together. That's how I get to live on the beautiful island of Bermuda. My husband lives and works on the island, right? I get to be a wife, and my entire AA life is centered around his home schedule, right? Dinner is served at 7 p.m. I get to do his laundry. I get to clean up after him, right? I get to do these things. And when I complain about it, my sponsor reminds me, right? My sponsor reminds me that I get to be a wife, a mother, a daughter, and a sister today. I also had to make an amends to a government agency that oversees aviation here in the United States. And I'd been putting it off for a really, really long time because I didn't want to do it, right? You know? And my sponsor would say to me, hey, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? No, I didn't do it. Did you do it? No. So guys, one of my character defects is smug superiority, right? And I figured I'm smarter than my sponsor. And I decided to assert my sponsor's authority. So I went straight to my attorney and I said, hey there, Mr. Attorney, this is what my sponsor wants me to do. And my attorney says, oh my God, hell no, are you out of your mind? We worked so hard to keep you out of jail and you want to go do what? Guys, I'm vindicated, absolutely vindicated, right? And I go back to my sponsor and I go there, hey there, sponsor. Guess what my attorney just said, right? I am so glib and so full of myself. And my sponsor says, you know, pats me on the head and says, "Aw, is that right? Aw, how free do you want to be? Get on your knees and pray for the willingness to be willing." Oh. Sponsors are so wise. And there's a line in our book that says, if the indicated action is to be taken, we must not shirk. So I made an appointment with this particular agency, and I took my attorney, and I took my union rep, and I took my aviation physician and another sober pilot. And as I stood before this panel, I told them that I was a sober woman in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that my sobriety was predicated on making right the wrongs of my past. And I wasn't here to beg for my job back or to have my license reinstated. I was simply here to do the next right thing, and I would accept any judgment they made or any decision they made for my future. And I was prepared to go to jail. Absolutely prepared to go to jail. I wrote letters to my children for their marriages, for the births of their first children. And I had said goodbye to all of them. And here's God working in my life one more time. A man on that panel said, I too am a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know exactly what you're trying to do. He said, this is what we want you to do. Never drink again, one day at a time. And we want you to help share what alcoholism is and what it isn't in the aviation community. We want you to help other aviation professionals find recovery. Guys, I will never fly again. I am grounded. My wings are clipped, and I'm okay with that. You know why? Because I get to sit in this book and take people through the steps so that they don't have to suffer the consequences that I did. I'm going to leave you with this. In my experience, there's a grand plan. I'm just not privy to it. And that bugs me. That bugs me no end. And that's a character defect that I work on all the time. And it's always in my inventory. But everything happens for a reason, and more will be revealed. I told you about that baby I had when I was 14, right? That baby is no longer a baby. That baby is now a full-grown man. And he found me. He found me years back. And he is a combat surgeon. He holds the rank of lieutenant colonel, and he works with civilian refugee populations. He was in that big earthquake, or he was helping in that big earthquake in Syria and Turkey a couple months ago. He has helped countless people, saved thousands of lives and restored humanity one person at a time. It took me 35 years of, pour me, pour me, pour me another drink to understand the divine purpose of his birth. You see, I was merely a vessel. I provided genetics and a womb. His adoptive parents nurtured him, cared for him, gave him opportunity. The military trained him, and God put him where he would be of maximum use. John, my favorite line is coming up. Page 77 of our book says, our real purpose as individuals is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people around us. To fit myself, right? To fit myself. That's not comfortable. That's not convenient. It's almost contortionist, right? I got to fit myself. But see, guys, I get to do that today, right? I get to love God's kids where they happen to be on their journey. And I'm so honored and so privileged to be a part of God's grand plan. If you're new or nearly new, please, I beg you, get a sponsor. Someone who has experience in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and do the work precisely as instructed. Because guys, you are worth it. You're here for a reason. And if you're a veteran of this program, guys, I'm going to beg you, beseech you, to reach out your hand to a newcomer and show them that this program works, because it's absolutely amazing. I'm going to end with page 164, if you guys don't mind. I know we're a few minutes ahead of schedule. It says our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Guys, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in my own sobriety. Happy birthday, Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you for all of you who came before me, who showed me the path, and I'm willing to carry on that legacy. So Glenn, thank you so much for asking me to speak. Again, my apologies if you guys have already heard this. My past doesn't change, but my recovery changes every single day. Thanks.
All right. I've asked everybody to
Wow,
show
thank you,
appreciation.
Lovey.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh
you,
my
Lovey.
God,
That was
amazing.
great.
job,
Thank
Lovey.
you.
Great.
You are awesome.
Breathtaking.
All right.
Very great. Very good, Lovey. Thank you.
You are an amazing, amazing speaker. You really are. The way you speak, and plus your story is amazing as well. And you leave us with, well, myself with, such hope and promise. And it was really wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Christiana, I'm going to ask you if you would mind reading the 9-step promises for us today.
Did you say me? Christiana?
Yep, Christiana.
Christiana Alcoholic. These are the 9-step promises from the big book, pages 83 and 84. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in ourselves. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.